All right, hey everybody, welcome to episode 37 of the Stop and Give Me 20 podcast. 20 minutes with some of the world's top fitness professionals. I'm your host, Anthony Rennie. You can check out the show notes at stop20podcast.com. That's stop20podcast.com. Make sure you leave us a rating and a review on iTunes and subscribe. All right, for today's show, I have on Bryan Mann, and he is the assistant teaching professor and research director at University of Missouri. He's actually a research director for the Human Performance Institute there. Before that, he was actually a strength and conditioning coach at the University of Missouri since 2004. He's worked at Arizona State, University of Tulsa, Missouri State. He's known for his work in auto-regulation of strength training, specifically with velocity-based training and the auto-regulatory progressive resistance exercise method, APRE. He spends his time between teaching, researching in sports performance enhancement, working as the research director for the Human Performance Institute, and working as the director of performance research with the Department of Athletics. Bryan, thanks for coming on.
Man, Anthony, I think I owe you like $20 for that intro, dude. Does that go to the 20-minute total time there?
It does. So we only have about 36 seconds left.
Sounds good.
Bryan, let's get this going. What's your story?
Man, my story, it's kind of like, I think Brett Bartholomew and I connect so well because our story are very similar. And I've only recently started telling it because I think that it needs to get out there for other people to know that they're not alone. I started lifting weights for a couple of reasons. Well, one, it's no surprise to anybody that's ever seen me talk or met me. I've got a big red birthmark on my face. Well, what a lot of people don't know, well, one, they would know and guess that kids are cruel, so I wanted to get bigger and stronger because of that. But also, I was, my dad saw it as an embarrassment and took it out on myself and my mom. So growing up in that way, I wanted to get big and strong enough that he couldn't do anything, and neither could anybody else. That everybody would leave me alone. And going through the childhood with the violence and things like that, that was something that definitely stuck with me. And powerlifting actually. I would say it saved my life because it gave me an anchor to which to set everything else to. Kind of like that Henry Rollins poem that 315 is always 315. That really resonated with me because no matter what else was going on in life, we had a lot of family issues. There was the weights, and that was my anchor. So that's why I got into it. I'm like, if it could save my life, maybe it could save somebody else's.
Love it. Love that you took that and turned it around because obviously so many times people can go the other way. And like you said, it's funny because I was talking to my wife yesterday. We were talking about a friend of ours whose son's getting bullied, and we don't have kids, and we wanted kids, but we don't have them. But sometimes we just say, man, sometimes it's good that we didn't have kids. I don't know how I would, be able to deal with that. That's hard enough, never mind within your own family, and I can certainly relate to that. So glad that you turned it around into something positive. So with that environment, I mean, did you have a superhero growing up? Was there somebody that you kind of looked up to?
It ended up being my grandfather. I wrote a full article on him about him on Elite FTS. Called My Rock, and I wrote it right after he passed away. The man retired to help raise me. He was a silent person, a product of the Depression, lost everything in the Dust Bowl, but just rebuilt his life through hard work, work ethic. One of the things I can always remember him saying is if somebody thinks enough of you to give you a job, then you make sure to give them their full value out of it. And, that's something that I definitely took to heart. If it weren't for him and my grandmother, with the statistics of the people who went through what I did, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be Dr. Mann. I'd probably be in jail or something like with a bunch of other people that were in similar situations whenever I was growing up.
Absolutely. That's great to hear. Love it. What about now? Is there anybody out there? Again, you teach a lot. You're exposed. You do a lot of education with other strength and conditioning professionals and people in the industry and research. Is there anybody out there that you feel like you're loving what they're doing and you're looking up to them?
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are out there right now. I really look up to a guy named Andy Fry. He is a professor at the University of Kansas who's done a lot of things that are very, very practical for the coach, from the research standpoint. I absolutely, he's a fantastic person. I'm going to be seeing him next week, as a matter of fact, and I can't wait. Another is Mike Stone, and another is Bill Kramer. And I mean, there's really no explanation necessary for those two. There's all, I have worked security, and whenever I was in college, and I got to meet some, pretty big name people like Snoop Dogg, Nelly, which were big name back in the 90s and early 2000s. Today, Snoop, everybody knows, but they're like, Nelly, who? What? And I never got starstruck. But anytime I'm around Bill Kramer, I can't, my tongue doesn't work. I can't talk. So, he's, definitely somebody that I look up to and hope that I can make the same impact on the industry as those three have made.
Love it, and you are doing that, and that kind of segues into my next question. So, who do you want to be a superhero with your message and your research and all of your education?
My sole goal is to bridge the gap between the research and strength and conditioning. I think that there is becoming more and more of a chasm, and it's both sides' fault. And I am trying to, bridge that gap between the two and get the researchers and the coaches on the same table, at the same table. And all of the research that I do, everything that I put out, I try and make very, very practical and very, very applicable. I could have a lot more papers out there, but a lot of them would be, somebody's going to roast me over this, but they'd be BS. They'd be some of the things that are finding the same thing that everybody else has already found. But I try and make things a lot more practical, so that if anybody reads my articles, my journal articles, they get something they can walk away with and use, or something that explains what is going on and what they see.
Absolutely. Brian, let's stay on that, because I wanted to kind of go into just the industry. And do you think we can just blame that on the internet, that chasm? Because, I mean, you're right. There's this kind of, we're evidence-based and we're, in the trenches based, and you don't see a lot of people kind of in the middle. But I think the internet has created some resentment for some of the people that, who are in the trenches, who feel like some of the evidence-based people don't really work with anybody, because of their internet presence. So who do you blame that on? Or not blame, but where do you think that comes from?
Man, that comes from ego. I think that everybody is wanting attention, and it's that, hey, look at me thing. And then somebody else needs to step in and get their attention by firing a shot at somebody else on social media. Because that's the best way to get attention, is to take a shot at somebody who's doing something, and say something contrary. And I think that, yeah, it does exist. But I think that social media just kind of exploits that for people being, wanting to be attention seeking, attention gathering, whatever it happens to be. I do think that there are some chasms, and I do think that there are people that, there's people in the trenches that are doing some amazing things and are very, very forward thinking. And we need to get those people sitting down at the table with people like myself and Matt Ray and David Zemansky. And these other people that have had a foot in both worlds. And I just stopped there because I could go on and on and on, and I know we don't have that much time. But we need to get the people that are in the trenches that are doing amazing things, that have been very innovative, and let's find out why they work. And so whenever we find out why they work and how they work, we can make sure to implement them with the greatest results.
Good stuff. Bryan, how do you go about that process? I mean, are you just kind of, you feel like it's going to be harder because you're not the strength and conditioning coach anymore at Missouri, right?
Right. And that does make it a little bit, it makes it harder and it makes it easier at the same time. My reputation in the strength and conditioning world affords me to be able to do some things. And I'm also still the chair of the special interest group for the college strength and conditioning coaches. And one of the things that I've been doing is at the national conference, is the time whenever we put out all these posters, right? These research posters. Mm-hmm. And I've contacted several coaches from around the country, and I've actually got 4 strength and conditioning coaches presenting research at national based off of the stuff that they've done and that I've helped them do. So, I'm doing it that way. And then also we're trying to what we're also doing is taking the best, most applicable coach posters from the national conference, and we've got an annual session now at the NSCA Coaches Conference, which is from the lab to the weight room, the newest research you need to know, where myself and or other researchers will get up there and present their stuff to the coaches. Because that's who we need to get it in front of. It's not that the research out there doesn't exist. It's that it's not put into a manner where the coach is going to be able to see it or to understand it. Yeah. The academic writing is tough, dude.
Yeah. I agree. Sometimes I look at that stuff and I don't even bother because I'm like, I don't even know what that means right there. The way the language is, it's almost like you talk to a cop and they talk one way, and then you hear them in court and they're like have a completely different language. You're like, what is he saying right now? So it's right, a little weird where all of a sudden they're starting to talk in this, and I read that, and I can imagine even the younger kids who have an attention span of like 0.2 seconds now that look at something like that and say, no way am I reading that.
Right. No, exactly, man. And that's that's why I'm trying to get everybody at the same table so then we can speak the same language. Another thing that we're actually doing, my vice president for the group, or vice chair, whatever, I don't remember what the titles are. I suck at that. But Mike Caro at Transylvania University, one of the things that we're working on doing is through the SIG Facebook page, we've got the software now to do it, and we're working on getting people signed up. But basically, it's once a month or every other month, something like that. Maybe it'll become more often than that. We're interviewing a researcher and having the coaches, doing a Facebook Live thing, so where the coaches can ask them any question that they on their research, just so that we can make sure that everybody's on the same page. So we're trying to. I'm taking several different paths along with Mike to try and make sure that we get this thing done. As the SIG chair, that's been my goal, is to get everybody on the same page. So.
Cool. I was going to ask you about a seminar maybe that you've attended, but tell us a little more. Tell us a little bit more about this workshop that you're talking about in Vegas right now.
So out in Las Vegas, I'm, like I said a couple of times now, I'm the chair of the SIG, and every big conference, the National and Coaches Conference, we've got a SIG meeting, right? Special interest group meeting for the college strength coaches. I usually try and get a special guest to come in because I can't bribe people with food. I don't have a budget. So I try and bribe people with people that they would want to talk to. So I've had Natalia Verhoshansky, Anatoly Mandruchuk, Andy Fry, and I've had one at Carl Valley. And this time I've got the pleasure of having Vladimir Ashurin, the author of multiple books, and his most recent, that Athletic Talent Identification, is amazing. Him to come in and be able to answer whatever question that any of the attendees have. And I think it's just it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I mean, how many other times that people have read these books and are like, well, this doesn't make sense. Well, if you come to the SIG meeting, you have an opportunity to ask the author, what did he mean, or what weren't you understanding there?
Yeah, good stuff. Love it. When is that?
That is in July at the NSCA National Conference. I don't know if they've actually picked the date yet for the SIG meeting, but the conference starts on July 5th and runs through July 8th.
All right, very cool.
Coach, or wait, it might be the 12th through the 15th.
I think it's the 12th. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's the 12th through the 15th. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, the 5th through the 8th is whenever I'm at the Okanagan. That's why I messed that up.
Okay, yeah, you can't keep up with all these things.
No. Coach. Then the following week I'm at CVAP. So July I'm at a conference somewhere.
That's right. You're speaking at CVAP too, right? Okay, cool. Coach, do you ever get to read any industry fitness related books?
Sometimes on the planes, man. I'll pick something up at the airport and go.
What was the last one?
Man, it was Dan Brown, The Inferno, I believe it's the last one of that Robert Langdon series.
All right. Okay.
And man, that's I love getting fiction because then the wheels actually stop turning. Some people want ideas. I need to make everything stop.
Yeah.
So I love that historical fiction stuff and that little bits of conspiracy and weaving in the great facts and everything that Dan Brown does. And then the movies kind of suck, but it's Tom Hanks, so that makes it all right.
There you go. All right, Coach. Now it's time for the stop and give me 5 rapid fire questions and answers. You ready to go?
Yep.
All right. In high school and college, you were 4-time national and 2-time world champion in powerlifting for the Natural Athlete Strength Association. You were considered among the top 20 athletes in the world for your age. What's your personal favorite powerlifting accomplishment?
It would actually have to be after that. And it was that I was always a squatter and a deadlifter. I could never bench. I got hooked up with a guy named Keith Caton, who's the head strength coach at Indiana right now. And he taught me how to bench press. And I hit 700 in a meet, and my best ever bench before that was 500. And, it was just that dedicated training and focusing in on that and, making your weakness your strength. And actually being able to do that. So I think that's my favorite accomplishment was that. And I went on to bench well over that. Unfortunately, never in a meet because I got hurt. And so that was that.
All right. You can pick any trainer to train you, past or present. Who's that going to be?
Charlie Francis. Hands down.
All right. Love it. With authority. Lunch with someone from the past. Who is it?
I'm going to say Yuri Verhoshansky, as long as I could have a translator.
All right.
The stuff that this guy has done, and actually, Joseph has already put it out that he's coming out with a new book posthumously with Natalia, who finished it, on the shock method on plyometrics, and it's fantastic. And if I could, sit there with a translator and talk to him, and just the stuff that this guy knows. Holy cow! It's there's a lot of stuff there.
All right, you could be in any movie. What would it be?
Ooh, that was the tough one. One of my all-time favorite movies is Braveheart. So I guess I would have to go either that one or Tommy Boy. Those are my two favorites.
Those are
Tommy hungry. Tommy want wingy.
Both are similar movies. There you go. Love it. Coach, I want to advance my training knowledge. You can only give me 3 books. That's it. I don't want to hear anything else. Only 3 I need to read. What are they?
I think the first one would be The Stress of Life let's scratch that. Let's go Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. It makes a little bit more sense, a little bit more well-written, just because English is his primary language, by Robert Sapolsky. That understanding how the body adapts to stress is key. The next one that I would give is a little off the wall. I guess that one might have been seen as off the wall too, but off the beaten path, I guess, is Build a Better Athlete by Michael Yessis. This talks about training, plyometrics, strength training, plyometrics, special exercises, and it does so in a very, very general but a manner that's easy to understand. It's probably Yessis' most well-written book. And it, if you've read his other books and you're like, that doesn't make sense, well, read this one because it makes everything clear up a lot. And then the last one I'd probably go with would be, just because it's a shorter read than Super Training, would be Science and Practice of Strength Training by Zatsiorsky. I would say Zatsiorsky and Kramer, but I've never read that edition. So that's those are the 3 that I think would give you the most well-rounded approach to training and adaptation.
Love it. Coach, what's a project that you might be working on that's kind of getting you excited right now?
Of course, the stuff with the NSCA and Vladimir, but on a research side, I've gotten some really cheap force plates, Pasco force plates for a dual setup, including software and platform. It cost me about $850. And looking at the jumps and the mid-thigh pulls there and seeing how it's not just about jump height. It's about how quickly somebody can turn it on And if we don't even, so that's just on the numbers. But one of the things that I've been looking at, and I don't know how to do it, but my bioengineers do, is the analyzing of the curve, the way that somebody jumps, the strategy that they use, not just with how quick it is, like time to take off, but their kinetic sequencing, from the hips to the knees to the ankles. That's something that's interesting me greatly right now. You can pick up when somebody has got something a little out of whack. And based off of where it is on the curve, you can get a pretty good idea if it's hip, knees, or ankles. And, of course, everything affects everything else. But it gives you a starting point of where to look at. I remember just last week with wrestling, I saw a kid's jump. I'm like, oh, what'd you do to your left ankle? And he just looks at me, holy cow, I rolled it last week. How did you know? And, it shows up right there with the way that you put out force. So it's not just the numbers, not just the power and the force, but the shape of the curve tells you a lot too. And I think that's going to tell us a lot for positional, what makes somebody good. And then I think also with injury prediction, and not just so much the prediction, but possibly even the return to play. This is a quick test, dude. If you jump, it takes 10 seconds to get 2 or 3 reps in, versus like a Biodex or something else that is open chain, but it's fixed into a machine. Well, this is very, very free flowing, and you can move however you need. So, it's definitely got me fired up. And if you combine that with some other things that could give you max force, maybe it's isometric mid thigh pull, maybe it's a squat, maybe it's something like that. You can get a lot of information and do it very, very quickly.
Love it. Nice. All right, let's finish up. What's the letter to your younger self? What advice are you going to give young Bryan?
I'm going to tell young Bryan to, always act as if you're the dumbest person in the room. In my younger self, I would often, I would try and be known for my intelligence, and by doing that, I wouldn't ask questions. So I misunderstood things for years because I didn't want to look like I was stupid. But if I approach everything now like I'm the dumbest guy in the room, I'm not afraid to ask a question. And every time that I've asked a question that seemed like it might be kind of stupid to me, but I asked it anyways, other people are like, dude, thank God you asked that. I was wondering the same thing. So, that's going to be the letter to my younger self is that. And also realize that you don't know everything. So keep an open mind, because my perceptions of training have changed over the years tremendously. But based off of things that I've learned from my own research, from others' research, it's just, those 2 things would be it.
Great advice. And you're really making just such a great impact in this industry, not only through your teaching, but, some of the organizing you're doing and heads and the chairs, etc. And really working to kind of make this a better industry and get better information out there. So, Bryan, thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me, Anthony, and thank you for the kind words.
All right, well, that's going to do it for episode 37 of the Stop and Give Me 20 podcast. Thanks again to Bryan, Mann. Make sure to check out all the links to all his stuff at stop20podcast.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave us a review and a rating. My name's Anthony Rena. Thanks so much for stopping by.